back to Bass Pro Shops, and this is a podcast that I have been dying to do for a long time. My son Philip, everybody, Phil Friedman Jr.
What's up, guys?
Philip, how are you?
Doing good, man. I got to witness this podcast last year, the setup that Bass Pro Shops does, and I couldn't wait to see if we're doing it again this year, and I love it. I feel like I'm at home.
Yeah, in a boat like this?
In a little bass boat.
We should thank Kathy, who is out there, who worked so hard for all of this, and Kathy, thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, so we could talk about a lot of stuff, but we don't want to get thrown out of Bass Pro Shop. So let's focus in on surf fishing. And are you going to focus in on corbina fishing?
We can do corbina. We can talk about it all, but I mean, let's specifically start out with corbina.
Okay.
And
first of all, can I ask you a question? What is it about surf fishing that you like?
the affordability of it. I mean, it's something that's not going to break the bank. All you got to do is drive to the beach, and like you said earlier, you're your own captain. You make your own decisions on where you fish and how you're going to fish it. So that's one of the top aspects. Bait is already there. You just got to find where the sand crabs are, the mussels, whatever you're going to use to target these fish. It's already at the beach, so you don't have to go buy bait. Basically, the only thing you got to pay for is gas, line, sinkers, hooks, and your rod, and you're fishing.
Yeah, you're so right about that. I mean, you could dig up sandworms, sand crabs. You can get mussels off the rocks. You can be self-sufficient, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then back to you being a captain, all you got to really know are a couple little tricks on how to read that surf on where you want to fish. And what you're looking for mainly when you get to your beach is there a food supply there for those corbina to be eating? An example would be sand crabs. Sand crabs is like your number one ticket when it comes to targeting corbina. And what you're looking for is when that swell goes out, you're looking for their little antennas coming up because they're filtering all that water going past them, and that gives them away, and you'll know they're there. And another good sign that the corbina are actively feeding on them is you'll find their shells, just like the top parts of their heads, just the shells, kind of floating and drifting up with the tide. And you'll know that the corbina are there actively feeding.
And, John Dipley, who was an old captain, I've mentioned, you didn't know him, but he would always say, find the bait and you'll find the fish. And that's so true. And another thing that points out bait is our birds.
Right.
Right?
Right. When you're looking for sand crabs, you're going to find those ones with I don't even know what they're called, but they got the long bills on them and they're running up and down with the tide.
Those are sandpipers.
Sandpipers.
Yeah.
They're running up and down with the tide, picking away at the sand and trying to find either clams, sand crabs, sandworms, stuff like that. So they're a really good sign for them to be there.
How do you say sand crab in Espanol?
Sand crab in
I don't know how to say it either.
How do you say
Cangrejo de arena.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
But anyway, so yeah, finding that bait, and then corbina, for everybody out there, man, you get to see them before you catch them, right?
Yes.
There's sight fishing involved.
Yes. So that's what's really, really cool about this is that you're not, a lot of people when they're going land-based fishing, they're trying to make the longest cast they can off the beach to get their bait way out there. Corbina, it's the exact opposite. They're literally, if you're standing and the water is coming up and it's about shin high and it's slapping you as the tide comes up, they'll run right into your legs. They're coming all the way up onto the beach. You can see their backs come out of the water in that real shallow water, and it's a real light cast. And so this is where you're going to kind of look for your sandbars and your trough. So when you're trying to identify a sandbar in the surf, you're looking for where the waves are crashing out farther. They're breaking, and then when they come back in, they kind of build back up and form another wave and crash onto the beach. Where they're building back up and forming another wave, that's your trough area, and those are what are called fish highways. Those corbina, surf perch, bat rays, your halibut, they're going to be in that trough going up and down the beach looking for prey. So that's a really, really good thing to key in on corbina. Now, when you make your cast, like I said, you're not making that big bomb cast. Really, really close to shore. Sometimes it's a 20-foot cast, 15-foot cast. It's real tight. The presentation that I like to use to target these corbina, 9 times out of 10 is going to be a Carolina rig. Carolina rig is basically a sinker on your main line, down to a swivel, and then you have your leader. With corbina, I like to fish really, really light leader. It goes against everything this man stands for. I like to fish 4-pound fluorocarbon, and it makes the fight funner, man, and it's you versus that fish. And
fluorocarbon?
Yes.
Yeah.
Always fluorocarbon. They're really, really line shy. Opposite of halibut. Halibut really don't care. But when you're targeting corbina, light line. You get more bites, and it makes the fight that much more fun.
Part of the reason why these guys like corbina fishing so much is they went to fish at Montgomery High School in Torrance, and it's about 2 miles from the beach. So I'd get them up at 5:30 in the morning and go, hey guys, let's freaking go catch some corbina before I drop you off at school. And it was a battle getting them away from the corbina to go to school, but we do that so many mornings down there in Redondo, right?
Oh yeah, it was always fun. And if we didn't catch a corbina, because we call it corbina and eggs, we'd have corbina and eggs for breakfast. If we didn't catch that, we were at Captain Kidd's having fried squid for breakfast.
Yeah, exactly. I love the way you talk about the fish highway.
Yeah.
That paints such a great picture because those fish are not randomly swimming around, right? They're in those highways.
Exactly, because it's a lot more dangerous for them to get up on that sandbar. They're going to get sighted by maybe a bird of prey, something like that. So they stay in those troughs and travel, and it makes it a lot easier for them. And that's naturally where your bait's going to kind of congregate. It doesn't get pushed up onto these big sand flats. It gets pushed into these troughs and swirled around. So they'll sit there and wait sometimes and just wait for the bait to come to them. But the big part about surf fishing is not staying in one spot. You got to cover ground. You're walking up and down the beach trying to find and pinpoint where these fish are sitting.
Catching fish, getting exercise, right? And some vitamin D with the sun.
Yep.
So how much of this is sight fishing? Is that important? I mean, do you just walk down and you see that kind of environment, those fish highways, and make a cast there? Or are you, I mean, you've done it, I've done it. You wade out into the water and you have a big corbina batting against your leg every once in a while, right?
Yes, yeah, and a lot of it is sight fishing. I'll go when it's really slow and the corbina haven't really moved in yet. I'll walk up and down the beach where I don't even make a cast. I'm looking for that one fish that's coming up feeding. And a lot of times, if you're not seeing their backs, as the water's starting to recede, you'll see a swirl. And it's really kind of, it takes time to kind of get the experience to identify that swirl, as opposed to just a wave breaking on the beach or a swirl from a wave going out. But you'll see these swirls and you'll know that they're kicking their tail trying to go right back out before it gets too tight up in that shallow. So these fish are literally surfing the waves all the way up the beach and then going right back down with that wave.
So you see a corbina, tell me if I have this right or not. You put your track shoes on and you get up there about 20 feet and then you lay that bait in the path of that corbina and hopefully you get a bite. Is that about right?
Absolutely right. And I like to give them space, man. Like if they're coming all the way up and feeding, my feet aren't getting wet. I'm staying up on the dry sand and I'm casting to them. If I see a fish come up down the beach, I will put my track shoes on and run to that fish and get them. I mean, we used to go down there with the Hawaiian sling when we were
God,
kids.
I remember that.
And this is what I literally got my 40 time in football from chasing corbina on the beach. Just a wind sprint down the beach as fast as I could, trying to get to that fish in time.
This guy, I'll never forget it. This is the honest to God truth. He took a spear. What was it? A Hawaiian sling?
It was a Hawaiian sling.
And it was like Christmas. So
Yeah.
you're not supposed to see any corbina. And he got it for Christmas. He freaking threw it like 40 yards. And I'm like, yeah, right. And he walks out and he's got this giant corbina.
It's the biggest
on it.
corbina I've ever got. I had a rope tied to my waist and I would throw this spear like I was reenacting 300. And this thing would go through the air and it was all slow motion. I couldn't believe, I watched the wobble of the spear as it went through the air and it just hit it right in the side and the fish froze. And I go, oh, I got one. And he goes, shut up. I go and I pulled this fish out and it bent in the rod and it looked at me and goes, what the hell?
That was awesome. So Corbina, that's one thing. How about grunion runs? I think tonight's the last night of this present grunion run. We're going into this grunion situation now where every couple of weeks you have a grunion run. Is that a good time to fish at night?
Absolutely. I mean, all that bait's getting pushed in. Now, when I'm fishing grunion runs, I'm leaving the bait rods at home and I'm coming out with a crocodile, a Lucky Craft, some sort of lure to replicate that bait. Targeting corbina per se, not so much. I'm not a big lure guy. I think the sand crabs is the way to go. Mussels, ghost shrimp. When I'm targeting everything else, halibut, yellowfin croaker, spotfin croaker is another bait fish, but I've caught them on lure as well. I'm throwing the lures. It's a lot. I can cover a lot more ground faster, and I think the bite's a lot better. In my opinion, it's a lot more fun to be winding into a fish than sitting there waiting.
Well, what about, I mean, you got an ample supply of live bait when it's open season, as it is in March.
Yep.
I mean, you can bend over, pick up a grunion, and fly line it out, right?
Absolutely, and you're talking about doing it at night.
Yes.
So nighttime fishing, different game scenario. That's when we're catching the giant yellowfin croakers. You're fly lining a bait out, not fly. We do the dropper loop setup with a little pyramid sinker, and you throw it out there, and you'll catch the biggest yellowfin croaker of your life. It's something that, I don't know, it reminds me of dropper loop fishing for yellows. It's the same thing because you're just sitting there, and then the next thing you know, your rod's going poof, straight down, and you got a fish on.
So a couple of years ago, St. Patrick's Day, I caught this yellowfin croaker. First of all, these guys never ever videotape me fishing. It's always me videotape. And I hang this fish, and I go to him, hey, videotape this, because this is a nice fish. I can tell it's not a ray, it's some freaking nice fish. So anyway, I catch this yellowfin croaker, and we measure it, and it's 22 inches long. So we look up really quick, the largest yellowfin croaker ever taken in California was 21 3/4 inches. So I'm like, they're gonna have a parade for me. This is so cool. So for about an hour, we're driving around and trying to weigh the thing and doing all this stuff. I finally went to this donut place where these Cambodian girls, I go there a lot, and I go, hey, do you guys want a nice fish for dinner now? Oh yeah, thanks, man. So anyway, remember that thing?
Yeah, that was caught on a green crocodile.
It was St. Patrick's Day, so I was fishing a green lure, and the luck of St. Patrick was with me that day. During the daytime, you talk about catching yellowfin croaker, if you don't mind for a minute. Man, there's nothing better than a little chrome lure. You like ProMars Deception?
ProMars Deception jigs, man. They're perfect. I was actually just talking to a gentleman about it. When your fish aren't chasing down the crocodile or the lucky crab, because when you're doing that, it's a constant whine. These Deception jigs, man, when they're slowed down, you make a real big long cast out past the breakers, and you work that. You can crank it straight in, it'll get bit, but that's when the crocodile's working. I like to work it when it's slowed down and the fish aren't chasing your lures, and I'll give it real slow whine, and I'll pop it a couple times and let it float right back down to the bottom. Real slow whine, pop it a couple times, right back down to the bottom. And when they're not getting bit on their crocodiles, I'll be catching the fish on those.
And, just to mention, all these fish are really good eating, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. I feel like they get a bad rap for being too close to the shore.
Right. Everybody says, oh, my God, you're going to die if you eat those things.
They're delicious.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of like the wrap because it gives them less pressure for me to go down and have a blast and make some really good fish tacos.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of him every time I say, as long as you go to safe areas in Mexico, you're going to be okay for the most part. And he's like, don't tell everybody that. We don't want a bunch of people down there traveling.
We don't want all the gringos going down and ruining our time.
Yeah. So let's talk just a couple other species. Halibut. Halibut fishing in the surf. That's a real thing. You can catch some nice big fish in there.
Got my first legal halibut from the surf on a gold crocodile. And right now is a really good time. They're spawning. So they're all coming up real tight to the beach and spawning. The drop shot technique, I like to fish a nice round circle weight down to the bottom. I like to throw the white fluke, like a 3-inch, and I'll throw that as far as I can, and I just drag it just like a drop shot. If you're a freshwater bass fisherman and you drop shot fish for bass, it's the same technique. And so the whole purpose of that big weight at the bottom is to kick up the sand, the silt, the mud, wherever you're fishing, and it draws the attention of that halibut to look for it because they're predatory. So they see that getting disturbed, and then they see that little bait up top, and they smoke it. About this time 2 years ago, down at the jetty and Surfside, we had like 10 halibut in one small area. They're sitting right by the rocks.
And Patrick.
Yeah, just drop shotting all the way down. No legals, but it was still a blast.
Yeah, for sure. No question about it. That's a fun thing. And spot fin croaker do not like to bite lures, but man, they get big, and they love to bite on a sand crab or a piece of mussel. I know there's some Vietnamese fishermen. Those guys are really on it. There's a guy named Peter that I talk to all the time, and I go, what is with you guys, man? What are you doing? And they're digging in the surf and using the sandworms, which are endemic to the environment, so those fish are used to feeding on them, and it works really, really well.
Right, and if you don't want to do all that work for a sandworm, go buy some bloodworms. They work just as good. I mean, the whole reason I started throwing the bloodworm out there is because I saw them digging up sandworms. And we went down there and had 3 nice big spot fin in probably half hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah, it was a remarkable bite, no question about it. Any other fish like barred perch? I mean, when we go to Mexico and fish, those things are so much fun, right? But they bite here on this side of the border also.
They do bite on this side. My buddy's up north fishing them out of Santa Barbara, Carolina rig with a little grub, and it's just a real slow drag across the sand, and they'll just pop it.
Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about our trip down to San Quintin, which is 140 miles below the border. You love that surf fishing bite, don't you?
Yes. Whenever we go down to Rosarita Beach and we bring our surf rods, it's hard for me to get Patrick and my dad away from Rosarita. They love that little town. And I tell them every time we go down, we need to go to San Quintin. We need to go to San Quintin. That's where the fish are at. And lo and behold, one day I finally get these guys. We go down there, and it was just lights out fishing, big barred perch, and yellowfin croaker. And then the funniest part is, Patrick, there's these little blue crabs that are in the sand, and they look like they're just ready to stick you, man. And we're walking through the water barefoot, and you just see their shadows with their claws are up, ready to go. Patrick walked up behind me with his lure in his hand, and he took his rod tip and jammed me in the foot as I'm walking out. And I jumped and go to run, but I got his line caught around my ankle, and I drove that Ahi Promar hook, buried it in his hand. And we ended up shooting a promo for Ahi Promar on how sharp those hooks actually were.
Right. I was like, seriously, we got to go find a medic in Mexico now for you to...
We ripped it out. It was fine.
He ripped it out. That was lovely. All right, anything else you want to say about surf fishing? I mean, it's affordable, it's easy. Grunion are running now. I love surf fishing just about more than anything.
Well, and the cool thing is you do have a shot at some fish that you would normally go out on a sport boat to target. White sea bass are in the shirt. Maybe not legal ones, but
once in a while.
Once in a while you get a legal one. There's also striped bass.
Yeah.
It's one fish I have not caught from the surf. My buddy just caught one about a month ago out of off El Segundo, a nice striped bass. And I've always wanted to catch a saltwater striper and a freshwater and then compare the meat, see which one tastes better.
Right. You know, one other thing, and a lot of people will say, oh, that sounds lame, but I mean, where else can you go and deal with a fish for about an hour in a really crazy battle when you hook bat rays in the surf? They get to be over 200 pounds. And man, yeah, Joe's laughing. You can be tied. I can remember going down there and go, I got a half hour, I can fish, and then I got to get back to work. Go down there and I go, oh man, I'm screwed here for an hour at least. And that you're on this fish, and you literally, I think you walk a mile following these things. It's pretty amazing, right?
Yeah, it is. And the other thing I heard about them that I haven't tried, maybe you guys have heard this too, is if you take a cookie cutter and you cut the wings out, it's supposed to taste like scallops.
Is that
I don't
true,
know
Danny?
if that's a true thing.
Joe says it's true.
I've
heard it, but I've never. Let's do it one of these days.
Let me know how it is.
Well, all right, Philip. Anything? Oh, wait a minute. Bass Bros. Talk about your social media stuff and the YouTube channel you guys have.
Definitely. I mean, Patrick got married this year. I got married last year, so we kind of took a step back from our Bass Bros. It's YouTube, podcasting, and it's mainly freshwater, but we do a lot of saltwater stuff as well. There's some cool surf fishing videos on there. We have some really good Amigo trip, yo-yo and yellows on 100-pound on a tuna rod. Stay here. I need a secretary to hand them out.
We're going to hand stuff out. Maybe. How are we going to do that?
I don't know. But we're definitely going to start picking that back up this year. He just got a nice house at Canyon Lake. We took our little brother out there fishing 2 weeks ago, and I got a 5-pounder. I'm like, king of the trip, baby. I got the 5-pounder. My little brother flipped into 3 foot of water, caught a 9-pound bass. Just coming up, ready to bed. We pulled her out of the water, tail's all bloody. We're like, oh, it's about to go down here, man.
And now, for the moment that you've all waited for. I know you're not here to listen to me, blah, blah, blah. We've got some free stuff to hand out. And how we're going to do it, I don't know. But I hope it is edged toward kids.
How do you want to do it?
It's up to you.
What size are the shirts?
All right. Well, look. Why don't you start with the kid? How many kids are out there? Do you have enough stuff to give every kid something?
Medium.
Medium
Perfect.
One
shirts.
medium.
One medium.
One small.
One small.
All right. Let's move this along instead of going through every shirt and
right
talking
here.
about. There you go.
Medium.
Start throwing them.
What do you got here?
That's XLR.
XL.
Oh, he stole it from Michael
Here, buddy.
Limon.
Here you go. Yeah, guys, so if you guys get a chance, come check out Bass Bros. We're going to start that back up. We're going to start doing a bunch of crazy things. One of the cool things with Patrick living on the water there is we have developed a new fishing style. And that is we go out and we do whoever catches the biggest bass wins, whoever catches the most fish after that wins, and then the loser has to do what we call a catfish rodeo. Catfish rodeo is right off the back of his dock. You got to get in the water on a pool noodle, and you got a little baby rod, and you're sitting there fighting a catfish, and you got to land it, unhook it, and release it in your lap in the water.
How do you like that, Joe? That sounds pretty good, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I have to come out and videotape that myself.
It's a lot of fun.
Philip, always good to see you. Are you going to throw some more
Here.
out there or what?
You want to save them?
I don't care.
Give 'em away.
Is there anybody else out there that